Am I the asshole here for refusing to change bikinis after my husband had asked me to wear a thong? Okay, so yesterday was my husband's birthday, we're both 22, and he wanted to have some friends over for a pool party. I thought it was going to be a chill time, I'd cook for them, etc. Yesterday afternoon, he asked if I could wear a thong bikini because he wanted to show me off to his friends. I don't mind wearing something revealing when it's just the two of us, but I prefer more coverage when we have company. I felt bad saying no on his birthday, so I agreed to wear it. I put it on about a half hour before his friends arrived. He was thrilled, which made me feel a bit better temporarily, but then he asked if I could take the bra pads out. I told him I really didn't want to do that, but he insisted a few more times, and I gave in, even though I was getting upset. When his friends arrived, I was bringing them food and beers. About an hour in, my husband came inside while I was in the kitchen and said he didn't like how much his friends were looking at me and wanted me to change into a different bathing suit. I told him I wasn't going to change. He'd wanted me in next to nothing even when I didn't want to be, and that's what he was going to get. His friends left a few hours later, and we had a big fight. We're somewhat resolved now, but I feel weird about it. I guess I'm just looking for unbiased opinions. Am I the asshole here? And any ideas on what I should do going forward if something like this happens again? Moving on to our second story. Am I an asshole for accidentally exposing my husband's childhood trauma to my mother-in-law? Hello. 33F here and mom to a 2-year-old little girl. I honestly feel terrible about this situation and could use some input. I met my husband in high school and we dated for a few years, broke up, and got back together shortly after college. My husband was a college athlete and doesn't like showing weakness or talking about his feelings much. He's the type of guy who will say he's fine when he has a fever and is puking. About a year after we got married, we went with his parents, 2 older brothers, and their wives on a vacation to an island they used to visit when they were kids. I noticed right away that my husband wasn't himself at all. He wasn't really engaged in any of the conversations and just seemed like his was mentally somewhere else for the entire trip. Towards the end of the vacation, I asked if everything was okay, and he told me he was having a hard time because being back there was bringing up a lot of old memories. I asked what he meant, and he told me a family friend who they used to vacation with molested him several times during his childhood. I was shocked, because he'd never mentioned it to me before and I didn't see any signs. He said he'd never told anyone, including his parents, because it wasn't a big deal and he didn't want anyone to worry about him. The stuff he described sounded very serious to me, so I dragged him to therapy, but he quit after a few sessions because he got busy. We've spoken about it a few times since, and he's always emotional when it comes up, but instead of focusing on his feelings and how it impacted him, he always talks about how he wouldn't be able to cope if something like that ever happened to me or our daughter. It honestly breaks my heart to know that he went through that, and I would honestly probably kill the guy if I ever saw him. A few nights ago, we were having dinner with his mom and dad. I was in the backyard having a glass of wine with my mother-in-law when she started talking about the family friend and how they were thinking about having him and his family for Christmas this year. I'm not good at hiding my emotions at all, and I'm pretty sure I looked like I'd been punched in the gut. My mother-in-law asked what was wrong, and I said I'd prefer if she didn't. My mother-in-law was confused since I'd only met the family friend a few times in high school briefly. She asked if there was a problem, and I just reiterated that it probably wasn't the best idea. My mother-in-law later called my husband and said I looked like I was going to cry when she mentioned the family friend and asked if I had a problem with him. I guess she kept pressing him, and my husband told her that the family friend had been inappropriate with him when he was a child. My in-laws were at our house that day, and my husband told them everything. His parents were obviously both crushed and want nothing to do with the friend now. His mom gave me a big hug and thanked me for looking out for him, but I didn't really feel like I'd done that. My husband isn't too happy with me right now. He said that I'm the only person he's ever told and he trusted me to keep it private. I've apologized and explained that I didn't mean to expose him. I was just shocked when my mother-in-law brought up the family friend, who they haven't seen in years, and my first instinct was to keep my husband and daughter away from him. My husband says he understands that it was an accident and forgives me, but I can tell he's still upset with me. I honestly feel like the worst person in the world. Any advice, and am I the asshole here? On to the next story. Am I the asshole here for finding father-in-law's comments creepy? When I was about 4 months postpartum, my father-in-law came over to visit the baby. Upon greeting him, he asked me if I was feeling like myself yet, to which I replied no. He said, "Well, you look good," which I thought was appropriate. What made me uncomfortable and creeped out was when I turned around, he said, "Nice tush," which I thought was weird. My BF didn't think it was weird, and I was wrong for thinking it was. So I was put off. Next time he came over, I was still creeped out by his first comment. So when he was here, he addressed my 4-month-old with "Hey sexy," which I understand can be a generational thing, but I was already put off by the first comment, so that one made my discomfort worse. Does anyone else think these things are weird? Our next story is, boyfriend went on a date with an ex a few nights ago and didn't mention it until today. Am I the asshole here for ending the relationship with little to no information? I, F27, have been with my boyfriend, M26, for 3 months. He has this ex, F, he's known for around 6 years, and they had a whole thing where at one point he thought she was the one. 2 nights ago their mutual friend, fake named Johnny, and the ex met up for dinner without my knowledge. The thing about Johnny is he always bails on plans. He agrees to meet up, but cancels at the very last minute. Everybody seems to know this, and that's exactly what happened here. Johnny canceled on dinner, and that left my BF and his ex whining and dining. BF failed to mention that the 3 of them were planning to go out for dinner beforehand, and he failed to let me know that the mutual friend canceled and it was just going to be the 2 of them. He usually tells me about his plans, even if they're very small and casual, like meeting his best friend for a drink, so this was odd. I feel as though they both knew Johnny was going to cancel, and so they invited him to make this rendezvous not look like a date. I don't know Johnny, but even I'd know he wouldn't show up after all the stories I've heard about him bailing. BF has a lot of exes, as he spent a lot of time dating around. This isn't the first time I've had an issue with how close and involved he keeps his exes, how much he shares about us with them. As they make up a large portion of his friendship circle, I felt it would have been mean to ask him to distance himself completely from them, so I've told him to be open and transparent with me when communicating and engaging with his exes so I don't feel sidelined, but he didn't, and this feels like deceit. His excuse is he didn't think it was a big deal, and his response to being questioned was a soft, "Oh, I'm sorry." I'm not really in contact with my exes, as I'm not interested in remaining in their lives. They weren't bad people. I don't live with BF, so I don't actually know what happened after dinner. I don't think he had sex with her, but then again, I didn't think he'd do any of this. I also don't know any of his friends from this particular circle, so it's not like I can investigate or anyone from his side will tell me anything. Sorry if this is all over the place. I'm speedily typing this on my phone whilst feeling pissed off. Am I an asshole for dumping him out of the blue?